Good morning. I'm Dr. Hatherley. I'm the director for the Center for Mental and Emotional Development here in Logan, Utah. And this morning, this is part 2 in the videos on the conscious education required to create conscious purposes, real meaning, and lasting fulfillment in our ordinary everyday lives. This is a new topic, actually, because mostly throughout our civilized history, human beings have only been concerned with the external portion of life. The portion that has to do with survival, security, success, entertainment, sometimes family obligations, and the material and physical external dimension of human life, not the mental and emotional internal dimension. So there's been mostly a total lack of information and understanding of what the internal side of life is. So we'd sometimes talk about love or religion, and sometimes even about purpose. But we haven't identified an objective, fundamental body of information and specific skills that we need to actually engage life as a complete human being. Instead, we've often acted as if we don't have internal potentials that must be defined, objectively understood, and consciously mastered. Nor have we understood our universal internal needs, like to express love, pursue truth, experience and create beauty, or develop wisdom. It has been my life's purpose to address this hole in our awareness and understanding, to make it possible for us to evolve in how we respond to being alive, both as a species and as individuals, so that purpose, meaning, and fulfillment become an ordinary part of normal life rather than an occasional part of an extraordinary life. So I first started learning by observing and asking questions so I could discover what was true. So I observed my parents. I could see, for instance, that my parents didn't ask questions, not about life or love or purpose or meaning. Instead, they just operated on assumptions and their feelings and beliefs. So they assumed that if they got survival under control, and if they felt secure, and they did what they were supposed to do and followed the herd, that all would be well, and that's the best they could do. So what happened was they had a normal life pattern. In some ways, they started with each other from a fairly romantic place where they had their first date in a glider that my dad built in his garage from a book and learned how to fly from a book. And they got in the air because a friend of my dad's in a Model T Ford, which is the first production car in the world, pulled him across a cow pasture to get him in the air. And he took my mom on that first date flying in this glider. I think he was 19 years old. And they did things together. They could dance on roller skates and ice skates. From this beginning, however, they did not understand anything about the internal side of life, so they didn't know how to have conversations. They didn't know how to learn by exploring, experimenting, and discovering. Instead, they just followed patterns that they learned from their parents and from being part of the herd. And those patterns led to them creating distance, and eventually, even though they were committed to the contract of marriage till death do us part, they spent their life emotionally distant and devoted to the idea of marriage with no idea about how to create an emotional bond. So I observed all this as a child, and it taught me that the people around me didn't have any questions about life. I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for people who asked questions and then thought about it, observed, and learned and discovered. To find people who did that, I had to go to books. And over the years, I found people like Isaac Newton, Louis Pasteur, Emily Dickinson, Annie Frank, Nelson Mandela, Buddha, Jesus, Michelangelo, Beethoven, Mozart, who asked questions like I did and were concerned about purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. And then they did something to understand these things, fulfill their potentials, and make their lives have some piece of those three elements: purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. These are the people I've learned from. And a few people in my experience that are still alive, but only a few. Mostly, no one asks questions. If you don't ask questions, make observations, apply your reason, and then experiment and explore until you discover what's true, then you don't learn. Instead, what we do normally is we learn by imitating and following. And in that dimension of life, in that environment of imitation and following, we adopt beliefs and ideas and follow our feelings. We don't actually learn. So today we're going to talk about learning how to learn versus adopting beliefs, feelings, or ideas. If you adopt beliefs, feelings, and ideas as a way of defining reality, then you will better be able to fit in and belong with the herd of humans. But you will not learn about reality or purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. That exists in a different dimension. So, if you want to learn about purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, one way is by reading what other people have done, like I did. And another way is to read books I've written on this topic. For instance, one book is called The Structure of Mental and Emotional Development. Subtitle is A Precise Path to Individual Happiness and the Evolution Required to Sustain Our Species. This book presents the anatomy and physiology of mental and emotional development, so you can learn how to learn and how to grow. In this book, I clearly define internal needs and potentials, as well as how to think for understanding and the 7 mental tools that would help provide a structure for you to grow. Essentially, the first structure for teaching human beings how to learn was Isaac Newton's scientific method. The scientific method provides a structure that if you follow that structure, you will learn how to explore, experiment, and discover what's true. Sometimes, in discovering what's true, you discover that human beings believe things and feel things that don't exist in reality, only in their fantasies and imagination. So learning how to replace fantasies, feelings, and imagination with genuine understanding, real skill, that will change your life and also change your purposes and priorities. Now you will want purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, not just success, security, and pleasant distractions. This is a fundamental book, the structure book. If you're still curious and you want to learn more, another book, and it's part of 4 first-tier books, is the developmental tasks for children, adolescents, and adults. This begins with the most fundamental developmental task of learning how to understand and master emotional safety and self-worth, and then builds in learning how to create a conscious identity, and then purposes that provide structure and meaning, and then how to understand multiple perspectives, your own and other people's. This book is critical to getting a big picture of life from birth to death, and then consciously making your way through this journey. Another book, the third book, How to Create a Personal Environment of Internal Fulfillment and Lasting Happiness. This book talks about the foundation of approaching life from what you feel and how you believe to what you can observe, understand, experiment with, and then apply to expanding into life rather than contracting and mindlessly just reacting to everyday experience until time passes and you're done. This last book is called Timeless Lessons from a Well-Lived and Loved Ordinary Life. The subtitle is A Psychological Autobiography of an Ordinary Man with a Conscious Purpose. This book will help you see how I responded to being alive, and you can compare it with how you have and see if there's anything to learn. Essentially, how we respond to being alive right from the beginning as a child defines our entire existence. We establish patterns in childhood that we follow all the way through. Normally, those patterns don't include conscious purposes, real meaning, or lasting fulfillment. So if in midlife, young life, old life, we decide we want some degree of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, then we have to change our basic response to being alive from being belief and feeling centered to be observation and question based, where we use our reason, experiment and explore, and then discover for ourselves, originally and authentically, what is true. So, this is the first step in expanding what you see, what you understand, and what you master. Seeing, understanding, and mastering are 3 human potentials and characteristics. Animals cannot see, other animals I should say, cannot see, understand, and master. So if we don't develop these potentials, if we don't fulfill them, then we don't actually become fully human. And most of us go through life with the same program as a chipmunk. That is, it is our purpose to survive, mate, procreate, and then the only way we differ from other animals is we also want to retire and entertain ourselves until we die. If that seems a little lacking, then maybe you'll experience some curiosity and a little desire to want to learn about the internal dimension of being human and how to understand and master that dimension as well as the external. Okay, until the next time, take care.